You're listening to the 95Podcast from the team at 95 Network, where we host conversations specifically designed to support leaders in small and mid-sized churches. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the 95 Podcast. My name is Carolee Culpepper, and I am here with our Executive Director, Dale Sellers. We have a special bonus episode today, don't we, Dale?
Yeah, this is the second bonus episode we've done the last couple of weeks. A few weeks ago, we did one with our teammate, Travis Stevens, to talk about some ideas that churches could use to prepare for Easter. And today we're doing a post-Easter podcast. We're actually going to drop this in right after Easter Sunday, which is coming up. What is it? Today's Thursday, correct, guys? Yeah, today's Thursday. And we're going to drop it in this coming weekend because the topic is I think is near and dear to probably everybody who listens. And so I want to introduce, we have three of our teammates with us. We have Denis Keith, who is in the Pennsylvania area, Bobby Lewis, who is in Alabama area, actually Pelham, Alabama, home of Dabo Sweeney, and then Kevin
Tigers.
and Kevin Smith, who's in Anderson, South Carolina. And Kevin does our produces our podcast, and Bobby's one of our coaches, and Dennis is one of our coaches, and they do other things as well. Welcome, guys. Thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks for letting me be here.
We're going to kick it off by Kevin. This whole concept was your idea. That we would have this specific special podcast. And since you are the podcast producer, I took notice that you thought of this. So kind of share with the listeners a little bit about what you were thinking when we decided to do this together.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've done ministry for over 25 years, served as a youth pastor, and now serving in a role in production, leading production for a large church in the area. And as we lead up to Easter every year, or Christmas for a big service, a big Sunday, one thing that I've seen pretty consistently, and no matter what church I was serving at, is the staff and the volunteers and the pastors and the production guys and gals work really hard leading up to this event. They're working set changes and planning and making videos and working on illustrations, and sometimes we'll even do a run through for this special Sunday. And then Sunday happens, and it's Sunday afternoon. And there's this giant, well, now what? You know, I'm tired, I'm worn out. And the thing about Sunday that's great, and also kind of oh God, is it comes around every 7 days. And so, you just finished this big Sunday Easter, and everybody's like, yeah, look at all the great things the Lord did. And you come in on Monday and it's like, oh yeah, we got to do this again. And so I just wanted to have a conversation around, one of the things that I've learned as I've served in these different roles is the importance of, reflecting and resting and recharging so you can do it again, and repeating that process again and again and again, so that you're not just a one and done and you're burnt out, and the next Sunday or the Sunday after that is just oh, we're here. And I think this year, as you look at the calendar too, Dale, there's another big Sunday right around the corner, because how late Easter fell is Mother's Day. Yeah. And so if you're not careful, you'll knock the ball to the park for Easter, and then Mother's Day will be here, and you're like, oh, we got to do something for Mother's Day. Yeah. Oh no. And so I just want to have a conversation with some guys and gals who've been in ministry for a long time, to kind of encourage our listeners of hey, what do you do on that week, those days after Easter, to recharge and replenish, so that you're not just burnt out for the rest of the next 2 or 3 weeks post Easter?
Yeah, I really think this is going to kind of hit a nerve. Dennis, take a moment and kind of give everybody in the audience an overview of your ministry background. Obviously, they don't need to know everything because you've been around a long time, but kind of give them so that they know where you're coming from. Because Kevin's coming from the production support staff angle, and then what has been your role, and what are you doing now?
Sure. I've been around so long that when I was in seminary, they just installed electric lights and running water. So
weren't you with Paul and Silas? I read about you in Acts.
We traveled together. I'm that unknown disciple that traveled together. No, I've been in
telling the truth because I was there.
Right next to me. I've been in ministry about almost 50 years now. Wow. I was a pastor in a wide variety of roles, from California, Texas, Massachusetts for about 30 years. And I've kind of held a wide array of roles. And I had, for a very, very short time, youth pastor, but associate pastor, senior pastor, executive pastor, as denominational guy for the Baptist General Conference. And then I also helped direct a seminary up in New England for a few years. And so I was involved in mentoring and working with pastors and, wannabe pastors, all that sort of thing for all of those years. So, and I've had a passion for the local church since I was a kid. Just cool. I raised in a storefront church in Detroit, came to faith through what's now called Crew when I was a student. And then God led me to be involved with in the pastoral role after 4 or 5 years with Crew out in Southern California. So I have that background over these years. So I've been in small churches and large churches.
You've seen a few Easters in your life.
Seen a few Easters, both from the senior pastor role, but also all the staff role too. So I've kind of seen all of it.
Okay. And then Bobby, you're in Alabama, and tell us a little bit of just your background.
I'm in Pelham, Alabama, and Kevin, I will forgive you for the shirt you're wearing.
No.
You got to follow the colors, guys.
Bobby, you might be outnumbered on this podcast.
For all the listeners, he's got on his Clemson orange today, and Bobby's obviously in Alabama. So anyway, we'll leave that alone.
We appreciate Dabo. I'll give you that.
Well, we raise up the best. So anyway. But I started a church in 2003. I've been in ministry so long that I actually remember back when we didn't actually amp up Easter. Easter came along and we said, wow, this is great. We're going to have a great crowd Easter. But now we spend a lot of time doing special things and focusing on Easter, special message, special everything, from music to photo booths to, the deal. But back in the day, it was, I guess Dale will remember this, the cantatas.
Oh, my mother sang them.
I remember those.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, Carol Lee's like, what is that?
No, that was my childhood. For
is that
sure.
a Mexican? Is that a Mexican dish that you get at the local restaurant?
We definitely did that.
Yeah,
we started church in 2003, and still at that church. I've done everything from kids ministry to working at a larger church in just about every different area. So got a little bit of experience there.
Yep. And then Carol Lee, you, for those who may not know, maybe new to the podcast, kind of tell us your background too, because that actually plays into this particular conversation. Growing up in a pastor's home and the whole thing.
Yep. So my dad was a pastor for pretty much my whole life. He did a few years as a hospice chaplain as well. But I mean, we definitely grew up in the Southern Baptist, church scene. So a lot of this stuff is very familiar to me. But I'm really excited to hear what you guys have to say about today because, Kevin, you were talking about recharging and replenishing, and it's true. I mean, I know that this, and you guys can speak into this, but it has to kind of wipe you out after a big weekend like this. And you don't really have any time to bounce back. So interested to see what you guys have to say today.
And to add to it, I pastored a small church for 12 years. I've been in ministry for 40 years, and I pastored a small church for 12 years, and it grew from 30 to 300 to 150. Everybody's heard that story. But the thing about it is I didn't have a team. I didn't have a crew. Kevin was my youth pastor at one period of time way back in the day, and he lifted the load so much when I had him. But I only had Kevin for like 3 years, so most of the time it was just me. And I had the pressure, Bobby, from the transition from the cantata to, all of a sudden, we were part of a church for many, many, many years that did an illustrated sermon every year. And our illustrated sermon, it took 3 months to prepare for it.
Right.
Because we turned our entire church into a set. Jesus ascended through the ceiling after the resurrection. One night he got caught and his feet were hanging down through the ceiling. That was pretty funny.
Well, of course.
In fact,
every church has had that.
On a side note, one of the funniest things you can ever do is just go look at Easter fails, Easter illustration fails. It's pretty funny. Yeah. But anyway, we did.
Can I
all
tell
that.
a quick story?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to interrupt you, Dale, though.
No, go ahead. I can come back. Go ahead. This is too interesting. Yes.
So I've only heard the story. I was not there to witness it. But David's dad, my husband's dad, played Jesus every year in the Easter cantata. And he grew his beard out. They did the whole thing, blood everywhere. Well, that evening they were on their way home from church. He still has blood everywhere. I mean, he's in shambles. David's mom is in front of them and they get stopped by a police check. And he does not have his license because his mom in the car in front of them has his wallet. Yeah, Jesus doesn't carry a wallet, obviously. So he pulls up to the police check and the policeman looks at him like, what is going on here? The guy's got blood all over him. And he was like, I promise you everything is fine. My wife's in front of me and I just played Jesus in the church cantata. The guy let him go. So that was good.
Well, you can't arrest Jesus. I mean, come on.
Obviously not. Obviously,
you can't put him in prison. He'll walk right out.
Yeah, he'll just go right through there. Yeah. And honestly, that story plays into what happened to us because we literally, we had a choir. We had a cast beyond the choir. We did all, and I helped do all this construction. I mean, we literally spent 3 months.
Oh, sure.
And by the time it was over, and what we discovered, the reason we stopped doing it is we discovered because we would do it for 10 straight nights and it would be completely packed out. We gave away free tickets, but we discovered the only people coming were other churches. You know, the churches from all over. I mean, even other states would come in to see our production, and it was done well, but it was wearing us out. And at some point, you do all that work, which this kind of leads into a conversation, Dave. You do all that work, you do all that preparing. I even talked about this with Travis. The last church I worked at a couple of churches back. We went, I'll never forget. We worked ourselves silly one Easter, preparing this incredible illustrated sermon that day, and it just fell flat. It just didn't connect, and it didn't work. And so then it's over. But like Kevin said, next Sunday's coming, and you're shot. And so this all plays into where a lot of pastors are today, because a lot of pastors have, I don't know, I want to say this in a spiritual sense, but I am seeing this. I just had breakfast with someone just discussing this. I think a lot of pastors have lost their way right now. Yeah. They don't know what to do. The pandemic, the people are coming back, but it's not the same people. And there's just a lot of confusion. And so I want us to kind of help anchor folks today, to help them understand, you've put all this energy, you've put all this prayer, you've had all this expectation. And I don't know what it's like for everyone, but I know for us, it didn't turn out like we thought it would, and even if it did, you're still fried. So Bobby, you guys finish up, you do, this Sunday. What is your next steps as far as you personally? What do you do to replenish, refocus? How does, and look, if you don't do it well, tell us. Because don't make it. Well, I'll tell you what I do. Now,
I've got all the answers.
I will say this before he even talks about it. Kevin just got back from a cruise, so he knows how to prepare for Easter. So we'll go into that in a minute.
Wow!
But go ahead, Bobby. Kind of. So you ramped up for it. Here we go.
Here's one thing that I've learned through the years is planning. Truth is, there was a time when I didn't plan well. I did exactly what you're talking about. The next thing is Easter, and so I put all my effort, all my focus into that. This week is, the week leading up to Easter is full throttle. Everything's happening, doing this, doing that. But one of the things that I've learned is to remember that there is other Sundays coming, and especially the following week, because really, you have the guests who come on Easter. Well, you want to then follow up with those guests. And if you're spent, if you're burnt out, you probably are not going to do a good job following up with those guests unless you have planned something for that. And so one of the things that I've learned to do is actually plan ahead at least a few weeks, because that gives me opportunity to not have to focus as much on church stuff, on ministry, because I know that I already have maybe a series planned for the next week. In fact, we have a series planned, a mini series, I guess you could say, because there's only 2 weeks in between Easter and Mother's Day. And so we have a mini series planned for those 2 weeks. And so I already have, kind of the idea of the direction that I'm going. And so I would say that one of the main things to avoid, the stress that comes after Easter is to have some plan for the next couple of weeks that enables you then to not have to wonder what's next.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, if you haven't done that, then what? I'd say this, the main thing is the follow-up of those Easter guests, because 100% of your potential growth comes from guests.
Mm-hmm.
So the follow-up of those guests is vitally important. But other than that, you just have to, as a motivated minister, a pastor, you have to force yourself to take some time to focus on something else.
Yeah. So Kevin, you guys, you do a full-blown set change, all this production stuff. And again, this doesn't relate to every church that's listening, but a lot of them it does. So what's your plan for next week? What is it how is it you handle it?
Absolutely. So going into, like Bobby said, it's having a plan after Easter. I think, one of the things that Coach Valvano did for NC State when he was coaching is they practice cutting down the nets. Like at practice, before they won a championship, they practice like, all right, so you can go up the ladder, you're going to cut. And so, one thing I've taught the guys that I lead from a production standpoint is practice what you're going to do or think about what you're going to do after Easter, after Sunday. And so for my guys, I've mandated, hey, you've got to take a day off next week. For some of those guys, they're taking Monday. Now I'm not coming in Monday, chill, be at the house, relax, rest. Some of those guys, Monday doesn't work because they've got stuff. They're taking Thursday. But just having a day that you can just do very little and relax, recharge, and get yourself ready because, the Sunday is coming back around. And making sure that you have a plan, like Bobby said, a plan that is, it's clearly communicated, it's clearly planned out, ready to go of, hey, so, John is off on Monday. Nobody's calling John on Monday, and Ryan's off on Thursday. So leave Ryan alone on Thursday. And so everybody knows that, and we respect that amongst the team that we work for. And so it's the plan that we know going into it so that the next Sunday, we're not just looking at each other like, are we here again? We're doing this again, and being ready for that.
Gotcha. It seems like you're saying too, not only have a plan, but communicate that plan to everyone else. Like, hey, this guy's off this day. We all know this.
Yeah.
Let him rest and make sure everybody's kind of on the same page about that as well.
Yeah. So right now, my main engineer, his name's John. Last year, he came to me and said, I've got this great opportunity. My wife's family is paying for the entire family to go to the Virgin Islands. I'm like, man, that's great. He said, but it's week before Easter. And I said, that's great. You should go. And so, there's been plenty of times where like we needed his expertise, his head knowledge in this week leading up to Easter. And it's been like, nope, we'll figure it out. John is resting. And he's been sending me pictures of like, he just sent me one yesterday of him and his daughter in the ocean. He's holding her in the ocean. And she's like, maybe I think she's just turned 2. And it's like, that means as much to me as anything else we're doing, to knowing that he's relaxing, he's recharging, and we're leaving him alone. And the only way you do that is if the entire team knows, hey, John he's out of bounds. He is unreachable, even though he's off. So on Monday, when, Ryan takes Monday off, he's out of bounds. He's not reachable. There's nothing that can happen on Monday that we can't fix on Tuesday that concerns Ryan. So let him do that and be away.
And I also want to say this for those of you who are listening. Well, I don't have a team. I don't have a Kevin. I don't have Ryan and John and all these people. You still need to communicate to everybody else, the people within the congregation. Hey, I'm going to replenish for the next couple of days or whatever it's going to be. You may not be going to the Virgin Islands, but you still got to build in some recovery time as well. So even if you don't have the big team that you still need to communicate. Yeah. I think that's kind of what Carol Lee was even asking that question.
Because I think like when you and I worked together, Dale, it was just you and I. And there were weeks where like,
just you and I.
oh my goodness, there's
Heart.
take a lot of reverb to fix that, Dale.
Send you
there you go.
Rose.
There you go. But
Throw away your suit, Dale. Throw away.
But being able to communicate to each other, like, you know, hey, I mean, like you used to go hunting and, you know, or fishing, and I'm like, I'm not, no matter what's going on, I'm not calling Dale or texting Dale
while he's
hunting or fishing. Yeah. But I think the same thing is as you tell your church body, like, hey, love you guys. Monday, I'm gonna be fishing, and you know, call me on Tuesday, and we'll talk on Tuesday. And I think there's some self-discipline, like you talked about, you know, just then, is, you know, you don't have to answer the phone when it rings. You know, it has a do not disturb. It has a red button that you can just like send that puppy to voicemail. And just, hey, make your outgoing voicemail. Hey, I love you. I'm unreachable today. I will call you back tomorrow, and then call him back tomorrow.
What would you guys say to the pastor who feels like they can't take that break? Like it's just not possible.
Dennis?
Well, I was flashing. There's the dialogue that God had with the prophet who said, I only am left and they seek my life. You know, and he was saying, basically, God, what will happen to you if they kill me? And it was kind of like, well, you know, the show will go on because God says, oh, I've got 7,000 people tucked away that could take your place. So just relax. I've got this. And I think I was thinking about what Kevin just said. Sometimes you need to tell the board, and if board members are listening, you need to take care of your pastor. But pastor, you do need to take the initiative to say to them, I need to pull back. I was just in a conversation yesterday. The big issue is that Jesus wants us to be with him. And if you're not replenished, you know, the old saying, Prof. Hendricks used to say, you cannot give away what you do not possess. And if you're drained, your battery's drained, and you just crash through after Easter. So Kevin and Bobby and everybody who said, you need to pull away deliberately, you need to do that because you need to restore. Because otherwise you start making mistakes, you start making decisions that blow up, you know, they crumble because again, they're all into your own power. You're just pushing through instead of allowing God to say, come away, my beloved, you know, and let me just speak with you, you know, be in your presence. What's that song? You know, I just want to sit at your feet, drink from the cup in your hand, lean against you and breathe and feel your heartbeat. That's what pastors need to do before they plunge into the next. So if it's a day, take the day because it'll multiply. That's our friend.
I've been married in August. Hold on one second. I want to say this. I've been married in August, we married 40 years. And I can say without exception, in the 40 years of my adult married life, every major mistake I've made was when I was exhausted. Without exception.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Yeah. We've talked about this before, and that is that, you know, ministry is never finished. When is ministry, when do you get to a place in ministry where you say, okay, it's all done?
I arrived.
You don't. And so that's the reason that it's important to realize that you do have to take that break. But one of the things I would say is this: when you take that break, maybe find something that you enjoy that you can complete. Maybe it's a hobby, maybe it's a craft, whatever it might be. I enjoy construction. I enjoy, you know, building things, remodeling things.
I might have a project for you in about a year, but we'll talk about that.
No, sir, man. I'm hearing about that project. I think my arthritis is going to be really bad by then. But take a project that you can take on and finish, and then be able to step back, and maybe it's painting, you know, whatever it might be.
It could be a puzzle. It could be a big puzzle.
Could absolutely be a puzzle.
A good distraction. That is such a great word.
That's a good word.
That's worth the entire podcast. It's just to find something you can complete, because truthfully, your ministry, when you complete your ministry, you're standing face to face with Jesus. That's a great word.
I mean, I've definitely had seasons in my life where I've looked at my ministry and said, is it finished?
Never
That
does.
is so good.
I think one of the things that the Lord has been showing me in the last couple of years of my life is Jesus modeled this too.
I
I think
go down that road. Yes, go ahead.
you think about, Jesus feeds the 5,000, and in Mark, he talks about the next thing he does is he tells the disciples, and if you've done ministry for any length of time, you want to tell your volunteers and staff, hey, you got to go. You get in the boat and go there, and I'm going to go to the mountain and I'm going to be alone. And he modeled that. Like, he did have this huge ministry moment. He fed a multitude of people. He sends the disciples away. He goes to the mountain, and the Bible talks about he was there long enough for it almost to be day again. Like it was dawn, and disciples, he had to walk on water to get to them. But I think a lot of times, especially in the support role that I'm in, the production role, I'm wired to push through and get the job done. And the word rest is a 4-letter word for me. It's like, what is rest? I'll rest when I'm dead. Even going back to like me personally, the Lord's shown me is I was raised by a mom who was raised on a farm. And so, I watched as a child her run a business, run a home. And like, I don't think I ever saw mom sit down and read a book and just chill. She was working and doing. And so as an adult doing ministry, it's like, well, why am I resting? Like I've got to go. And, we missed the part of the word and the part of the story of Jesus where he said, hey, I'm going to go and sit here and I'm going to be with my Father. I'm going to pray, and you all go there because I need to be alone for a little bit.
Small church pastors. Go ahead, Carolyn.
I think the Lord's showing me a lot about that too. Right now, I'm kind of like your mom. Like I could just find something to keep me busy all the time. But I think, taking rest for me, God's just showing me that, like, I think sometimes when I avoid doing that because I'm worried that if I do, then I will fall behind on everything. But that's not trusting God to make that time for me. That's not trusting God to create the opportunity for me to get my other stuff done and also rest. And so I think it's a thing for me where, one, it's losing a little bit of control. And then two, it's the fear of, what would happen, if I don't rest. So these are good points for me to remember, even not being a pastor.
Well, let's dive on in here. So for a small church pastor, a lot of them are saying, oh, that's great. Y'all, that's wonderful. You got all these people helping you. And then to Carol Lee's point, I've said this in our conferences. I don't know that I've ever said it on the podcast, but I'm going to say this to you. If you're a pastor leading a church, or if you're a leader of any arena, or if you're just a believer and you don't Sabbath, you're in sin.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's let that settle for a second, because Sabbath is not a law principle. God didn't introduce Sabbath in the law. He re-acknowledged it in the law, but in the creation, he gave us Sabbath, and we don't do this well. And sometimes it's because of what Carol Lee was alluding to. We don't want to fall behind, or we're out of control. But I think there's two principles God's given us that we've got to let settle in, that I'm not sure pastors do a good job with this. The first one is Sabbath, and the second one's tithing. It makes no sense to give away 10% of your money from a worldly perspective. It doesn't make any sense to give money away. You need to hoard, because then, and if you do that, then you feel like you're in control. But when you give, you're acknowledging he's your source. The same thing's true with Sabbath. If you think you are it's one of two issues. Either you think you're so important that people can't function without you, and so you can't afford to take a day off, which I don't think is the case for most of us. Most of us feel guilty because we feel like we are the exception to the rule. And it's to Kevin's point, if Jesus modeled it for us, and Jesus didn't necessarily model taking off Sunday or the first day of the week, or in the Old Testament, and the Saturday, the Sabbath, he built that. He got that time when he could get it. If we don't start building that into our lives, we're going to continue to be unhealthy pastors who create unhealthy churches. Dennis, when you were leading, pastoring, staffing, did you struggle with Sabbathing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, because I had 3 kids, and I was usually had my toes dabbled into something else, even like now. I'm always kind of doing several things, so it was always difficult to pull away. And Dale, what I was just thinking, to your point, this might be the opportunity for small church pastors who may have not done Sabbath to start post Easter this year.
Yes.
To launch the new resurrection of their way they do life.
Oh, that's so good.
And say, I'm now going to take Monday or Friday. One of my friends always takes Friday off. He comes in, does the administration stuff on Monday, and then takes Friday off. But that way he's really refreshed by the time he gets to Sunday. But maybe this is the time. This is the launch date. So the launch day to begin to say, okay, from this point forward, I am going to exercise Sabbath. One other thing, I was thinking about spouses. If it's at all possible, now some of our small church pastors, their spouses are also working. They may have a job at the hospital or the law or whatever. They're somewhere they're working. But if at all possible, if they can get away with their spouse post Easter, because he or she has also put a lot of energy in making Easter, a lot of sacrifices to letting the pastor do whatever they need to do on that Sunday with their staff. But he or she has been managing the house and everything else. Okay, I'll take care of it. And they're exhausted as well. So if that would be a great gift to them, and say, I value your contribution to this ministry as well. So let's together pull away. Now, unlike Bobby, Valerie and I would find, because we lived on both coasts, California and New England coast, Valerie loved the ocean. So we would find some ocean time, even if it just meant walking the ocean. And then of course, lobster somewhere. Lobster.
I do love your lobster. So I want all of you to answer this question. And I'll go first, but I'm gonna tell you the question so you can be thinking about it. But how do you unwind? What is it you do to Sabbath, to unwind? Because even Bobby's example, this is important. Bobby's example of going out and doing construction. Bobby and I both grew up building, and I got my builder's license when I was 18. So for me today to go do a building project or go do anything building, it's actually fun because I'm not doing it for a living anymore. So what I want to address is the fact that sometimes Sabbath doesn't mean you're sitting in your easy chair praying and reading your Bible all day. There's ways to do that. And so literally this afternoon, when I have this podcast and I have one more I'm going to record. And then this afternoon, Gina and I are heading to the river because the fish are biting like crazy right now. And I'm not going to sit at home and let people send me pictures of fish biting and me not go get them. And so I'm building that into my schedule. And I'll talk about this toward the end of the podcast, but there's a couple of books I want to recommend. But as I've mentioned a few times before, Carey Nieuwhof really rocked my world when he talked about, if you look at your calendar, 6 months from now and your calendar's empty, that's not healthy. That was so backwards to me. I was thinking, well, that's good. That means you don't have it. He says, because if you don't have it, if you don't plan your calendar will plan you. And so for me, I'm doing that. And then actually tomorrow afternoon, my son-in-law reached out to me and we're going to play golf tomorrow. That's going to be the first time I've played golf since December. And I only played once then. And so it's going to be ugly, but I'm going to enjoy the day. But the bottom line is those are things I enjoy. So for you, Bobby, what is it you do to unwind or Sabbath, or how do you do that?
Well, there's a couple things. One, my personality type is I really enjoy, I'm in many ways an introvert.
It's tough on a pastor.
Hey, you know what? Many pastors are introverts, and they're really operating when they are at church, when they're speaking, they're really kind of pushing past their gifting, because I was telling someone yesterday, sitting down, just reading a book, man, that's refreshing to me. I love it. I thoroughly enjoy learning. And so whether it's reading a book or listening to a podcast or any of those things, those are energizing to me. Doing some work around the house is energizing. It's things that I can do, that I can complete. And the good news is I get a little pat on the back every once in a while. Those projects.
Get that honeydew check off.
That's right. I would say this to what Dennis mentioned earlier. If the thing that you do is to go off with your wife, which I love to do, we enjoy going, just kicking around. Sometimes we go to to antique shops just to see things that it's like, man, I hadn't seen one of those in 100 years. They don't even use those anymore. But if you do that, be sure that you're present.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Be sure that, you're not fielding calls and texts and all of those kind of things from the day before or the week before. So
That's so
Bill, to
good.
answer your question, there's several things that energize me, but sometimes it's a matter of making sure that I do them, because man, ministry, life can get out of hand just that quick. One text in the morning can send the whole day,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To your point there, we have a friend named Ira who we're going to have him on the podcast in a few weeks. He's my friend in Texas. Ira tells me this story that he and his wife, he lives in Texas, in Houston. They went to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, had a conference. And so him and his wife had a couple of days there. I can't fathom this, but he says they were walking on the beach, holding hands. So he's got his right hand holding her left hand, walking in the beach for during sunset. And he's got his phone in the other hand texting, and she's got her phone in the other hand texting. And they literally walked on the beach for 45 minutes and never spoke. And he said they looked at each other and go, "Oh Lord, what's happened to us?" And it was a real wake up moment. So when you said, when you're there, be there, that's cool. Kevin, what about you? What do you do to unwind?
Very similar to Bobby. By nature, I'm an introvert. So like being by myself in a house, just, watching sports or reading a book is my dream. But also similar to you is I like doing things that, to Bobby's point a while ago, was completion.
That's a good
so
word.
I have, it's a great word. So I have a lot of opportunities to do like side contract work, doing some TV sports type stuff. And so doing that kind of stuff, again, it's like you said, building a house or doing a project that's considered work. But for me, it's refreshing because it uses a part of my brain that I don't do while I'm doing ministry. Gotcha. It's using a new muscle, and for me, it gives me life, it gives me energy. And hey, don't sleep on a good. Well, I guess you can sleep. Take a nap. Like,
that's a good one.
That's huge.
You mentioned me going on the cruise, and everybody I've talked to about like what'd you do? I napped. Like,
that
sounds
sounds glorious to me.
I didn't know I needed these naps, but I was sitting by the pool and the wind's blowing. And I'm like, you know what? It's 2:30 and I'm gonna take a nap, and it was great. So man, sleep on a nap. Go get you a good nap in, and don't feel bad about it.
That's right.
So yeah,
that's good. Dennis, what about you?
Well, I was just thinking about my son. He's a pastor, and he's on a staff. And let's see, Rye's 44, and they have a policy. I mean, Ryan turns off, even though we're tight. I know I don't call him on. Usually it's Friday, but I don't call him because he's got his phone turned off anyway. So they have a policy sort of as a staff that they also turn off their phones, and they're just not available at all. Obviously if there's some emergency going on, they have to, they'll make that exception, but the rule of thumb is, and so that would be one thing, turn off your phone, which is kind of, when you're present, you're present. And part of that is that nobody's
just made every small church pastor who listens to this podcast drive off the road. I can't turn my phone off. Everybody needs me. Anyway.
That's right. That's right. What if the governor calls? Well, if he does, he'll call. My dad never had an answering machine. He says, they'll always call. I said, why don't you have an answering machine? This is back in that day. And he said, well, if they really want me, they'll call me back, when I'm ready, and I went, good thought.
Makes sense.
So, that makes sense. So all their staff, now he's in a larger church, but that's just a rule of thumb. They're inaccessible, as I think Kevin just said, but they turn off their phones. And that's what I've tried to do. Just, I'm not there. So some people say, hey, I called you, I texted you, why didn't you respond? I said, well, my phone wasn't on. I had other commitments. That's the other thing. That's the other thing pastors can say. I have other responsibilities today, and I can't meet with you because people, I need to meet with you on Monday. Well, I have another commitment. I don't tell them I'm meeting with Jesus, but or I'm going out on a date with my wife. I just have something else in my schedule, which again goes back to planning. Plan it, gone, market. So like these guys, it's interesting. I may sound like an extrovert, but I love people and I'm energized by people, but they drain me, after I work the room, all day on Sunday, and I've shaken every hand and prayed for people and done all the things all the gymnastics things that you need to do on an Easter or any Sunday. I'm done. And I need to, like these guys, I find a chair and then suddenly I find I'm toast and I'm gone. I'm out.
That's good stuff.
If I can hustle somebody, I will hustle my grandchildren to go play tennis.
There you go.
Carolee, what about you? What do you do?
Oh gosh. Well, let's see.
I can't wait to hear this answer.
Great. Well, I like to run. I know that's crazy.
That's right.
I love, that kind of, for me mentally is a really good thing. So yeah, if I've got some time, I'm definitely going to do that. And then as far as oh gosh. So one of our favorite things to do on a date night is to go eat somewhere and then go to Trader Joe's. Do you guys have a Trader Joe's around? We love to go there and just find like the best cookies or candy or whatever. I get such a kick out of just walking through and just finding a treat. So that's something that we love to do.
That's fun. Find treasures. That's good.
But Bobby, Kevin, you said this, like just kind of being alone for a little while. I mean, with little kids, there's not that many occasions when I am alone, unless
not hearing the word mama.
Yeah. So like if I had just like 2 hours by myself just to really do whatever I wanted to do, that would be a huge thing for me.
It's miraculous, isn't it?
Yeah, like the world is my oyster. I can do whatever I want.
We've recorded lots of podcasts with Carolee, but one of the things that she and I had a conversation a couple months ago, and I'm just going, you know what? I'm blocking. You can do what you want to with it, but I'm blocking Wednesdays. We're not doing any podcasts on Wednesdays, because your kids are at school and just to give her that time, because again, she's in a different world than everybody else here, because she's got the young ones pulling on her and drawing on her. Guys, thanks so much for your time, for sharing this. Again, for me, I knew this would be a great day, but I think if we can walk away with anything, Bobby's advice to find something you can complete.
I love that.
It's huge. That is a huge thing. I have 3 books I want to recommend. One is 2 of them by Lance Witt. The first one's called Replenish. It was a book that came out. I know when Kevin got it, it really impacted his life. And then Lance just put out a book not long ago. In fact, we did a podcast about both these books with Lance. So if you want to go back and listen to them, his second book that he did was Your One Life. We just talked about that recently. And I know Lance connected with Carolee really well too. It was pretty cool.
It was good. He had so many great things to say.
And then Carrie Nieuwhof's new book, I think it's called At Your Best. I'm not looking right at it, but Carrie, really, again, I've had a few moments in my life where someone said something, I'm going, wow, my entire thought process about that particular issue was wrong. And it was when Carrie talked about, controlling your calendar. And see, after Carrie, I literally went and I've blocked every morning from now to Jesus comes, from 9 in the morning till 12. You can't get in that space. You can't go and sign up and get an appointment unless I agree to it, because I've allowed that time for creativity, for us to record podcasts. I get to control that time. And it's changed my life. And so those are 3 great books. We'll put those in the show notes for this, just to let you know where they are and how to find them. But guys, thank you again for your time. We're going to get this podcast out really quick so guys can have it and just listen to it right after Easter. And hopefully I think it was you, Bobby, or no, it was Dennis that said, listen, maybe this could be your beginning to start, a fresh start in your life. Because if you don't build this into your life, it will not be built in by itself. You'll be run down. So guys, thank you so much for your time and for participating today. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the 95 Podcast. We look forward to sharing another episode with you next week. In the meantime, visit our website at 95network.org. The website is loaded with great resources created for small and mid-sized church leaders. Until next time, have a great week.